Minnesota is the epicenter of the nation's largest known outbreak of sexually transmitted ringworm. This is according to health officials.
Welcome to another episode of J Inclusive. Please share, like, comment, subscribe, and set your notifications on so you are alerted every time I upload. The gays have already been acting out all fall and winter, with 1,000 people recently attending a sex party in Atlanta this past January, where special guest Fat Rabbit Killer Pablo Strokes and a few others were in attendance, and according to social media, the attendees definitely showed up and showed out. So with the warm weather right around the corner, the sexcapades are about to heat up.
A very rare sexually transmitted STD has made its way to the United States. A man developed a fungal infection that is sexually transmitted in the form of ringworm. My next guest has more details on the case. And Dr. Ali joins us here on The Factor Uncensored to talk about this new STD, or is it new, Dr. Ali, that we have identified in a man in New York City?
Isaiah, it's actually been around for many years. This sexually transmitted disease actually started in India many years ago, back in the 1990s, and then recently has emerged in the European countries. And then most recently, we got one of our first cases here in New York City. This was actually a gentleman who had traveled from Europe and was staying in New York City that infected another gentleman, and that's how we have had the most recent cases of this sexually transmitted fungal infection.
Now, what exactly is this STD?
Yeah, Isaiah, this is a ringworm. It's a different form of a fungal infection. Oftentimes, sexually transmitted diseases are bacterial infections, and that's what we commonly see. However, recently, this fungal infection is what's emerged, and what we're discovering is that the transmission of this is a sexually transmitted disease, meaning that this goes from person to person, and that's how it's infected. And we have seen this, especially in this case, in the European cases, that there's a significantly higher case of this infection in the gay population, in the men-to-men sexual intercourse. However, rarely, but it has been seen, but more rarely is it transmitted from female to male or male to female. This is more in the gay population that we're seeing this specifically a men-to-men contact.
It's almost scary, like back in the AIDS days where we couldn't figure out where it was coming from, but we knew it was from male-to-male contact. And
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. And the reason why this is important is because the treatment is actually different than other fungal infections and other bacterial infections. So that's why if you have any symptoms, if you have any new rashes that have developed, especially around the perianal area, around your penis or genital area, it's very important to get that checked out because there are blood tests for this that can be done. And so that's why it's so important to get assessed, because this may not be a bacterial infection. It may be a fungal infection and needs to be treated different, not with antibacterials, but instead with antifungal medications.
But different from the AIDS that we all once knew about, and not deadly though, right? What's the end result here? If you
I say
what happens?
Most of these cases are treated and resolved. However, it does take months for these symptoms to resolve. And that's why the folks are being encouraged to stay away and be careful if they do have that rash to not spread it to other people and get treatment early on. The earlier that the folks get treated with the appropriate medications, the earlier the symptoms resolve and the lesser chance there are of spreading this fungal infection to other folks.
And you really hate to point the finger in a situation like this, but what we realized, and the guy admitted in New York City, was he said he went from country to country, and in those countries he had sex with different individuals, and then came back and had the current case of STD, the fungal STD that he has. So sex tourism, if you want to call it that, can be dangerous.
100%, Isaiah. You're not sure what sorts of infections or sexually transmitted diseases that person may be carrying. So yeah, it is very important, especially if this is somebody who you've never been with, or this is your first interaction with them. From a sexual standpoint, you may want to be extra cautious, and be very careful of that, because you're right. I mean, especially folks that have been traveling from overseas, other countries, these sorts of things that may not be as prevalent in the United States are prevalent overseas, and those they may be bringing that over. And so be very cautious and careful of that.
Absolutely. Now, for those who, and I think this right now is the only case in the United States, right, Dr. Ali?
Yes, that is correct. And since then, there have been more cases, but they're all localized still to the New York area. And we have not heard of it spreading throughout the country so far. But I do want to caution folks and make them aware, especially if they're having any sort of rash, nausea, vomiting, fever, chills, those sorts of symptomatic issues, to get checked out, get treated appropriately, and get the appropriate blood work. Isaiah, we've talked about this stigma. Maybe it'll just go away. Maybe it's just, something else. Get it tested, get it looked at, talk to your doctor about it, because otherwise it may linger around a lot longer. It may spread to other folks that, especially your loved ones. And you just really want to be careful if you're having any of these symptoms.
Getting the word out about a sexually transmitted form of ringworm that's newly made its way into the U.S. So far, there's one reported case, and it is here in New York. CBS 2's Christy Kalishian shares what doctors know so far.
It's an infection that comes from the same fungus linked to conditions you may know of, like ringworm, jock itch, and athlete's foot.
What makes this case a little bit different is it is a type of ringworm that can cause more inflammatory type lesions, and it can occur in the groin area or the genital area.
Dr. Avram Kaplan led the study and authored a report published in the journal JAMA Dermatology earlier this week on trichophyton mentagrophytes type 7, or TM7. It's a sexually transmitted infection that can appear like this in the groin area and can be itchy. So far, the one reported case in the U.S. is in New York City. A man in his 30s, the report says.
It was reported in a journal, which tells you that it's new. We're still learning about it. Because it's just this one case, I think we're really starting to understand how could this have happened.
The study says the patient noticed itchy lesions after a trip to England, Greece, and California, where he said he had sex with multiple male partners. Cases popped up last year in France. Earlier ones were linked to those in contact with sex workers in Southeast Asia.
If they have a persistent itchy or painful lesion or eruption around the genital area of the buttocks, that's when they should be seeking medical advice.
The rash could be mistaken for other conditions. If left or improperly treated, it could lead to infection. Doctors say it is treatable thanks to antifungal therapies. City Health Commissioner Dr. Ashwin Vasan says the doctor's office is always judgment-free.
Shame always gets in the way of getting healthy. So I would say never feel ashamed to go reach out to your doctor.
Doctors say communicating with your partner about having conditions like this is key in preventing the spread.
Minnesota is the epicenter of the nation's largest known outbreak of sexually transmitted ringworm. This is according to health officials. This is called TM7. It's a sexually transmitted fungal skin infection. It can cause severe ringworm. So it's the only known fungal-based sexually transmitted disease, according to the Minnesota Department of Health. Good news, though, it is treatable with oral antifungals. In the Twin Cities area, there have been more than 30 confirmed or suspected cases. So there are other cases scattered in the larger U.S. cities as well. This is most prevalent among men who have sex with men.
I want to make this clear because there are a lot of people taking DoxyPep who don't understand how it works, what it protects you from, and what it does not. DoxyPep does not 100% protect you from contracting any sexually transmitted disease. It lessens your chances, but it is not 100% guaranteed. It also does not protect you from sexually transmitted ringworm. So you may want to avoid the dark rooms at these sex parties, lessen the amount of partners you have, and use protection at all times. And while this new ringworm is curable, if you actually care about other people's sexual health, it can take 3 to 4 months to be completely cured of this ringworm. Stay safe.
You know I hate skipping along, but you said that you would soon be home. Baby, that was a long time ago.